Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Triangulation, episode 121, recorded September 25th, 2013. Grant Imahara. This episode of Triangulation is brought to you by lynda.com. Learn what you want when you want with access to over 2,000 high-quality online courses and training videos, all for one low monthly price. To try it for free for 7 days, visit lynda.com/triangulation. That's lynda.com/triangulation. It's time for Triangulation, where we interview the coolest people in technology, the coolest brains, and Leo Laporte is out today. I'm Iyaz Akhtar, filling in because Leo's on vacation. And normally there's three parts to this whole triangle, right? There's the chat room, there's Leo, and I'll play the part of Leo. And today we've got Grant Imahara in studio in the Brick House, so we
I'm
can
in the
actually.
house.
So we're gonna pick your brain for about an hour.
Okay.
You ready for that?
I am ready. Let's do this.
All right, let's go way. Well, people know you from Mythbusters and BattleBots and ILM, and they go to IMDb. There's like a list that's like 3 miles long. Let's go way back. Okay. Like, what was your childhood like?
I grew up in Los Angeles, and my home was it was a single parent family, and it was really my mom that raised me, and we were very close with my grandparents. But it was kind of a struggle. She was a working mom, and as a kid, her favorite thing to get me was Lego bricks, and so I would play with those for hours and hours, be completely quiet except for the wrestling. So I was an indoor kid.
So you weren't a free-range kid. You weren't like attached by a leash to a post. No.
No, I didn't go and ride the bike and explore the neighborhood and climb trees and stuff like that. I was indoors playing with Lego, and then when I got a computer at 7, that was it. No more going outdoors ever for anything.
At that early age, though, were you ever able to put Legos together with computers? I know these days, you've got all the Mindstorm things.
Yeah.
What were you doing back then with those two?
No. See, that was the thing that was so cool, is that Mindstorms is that link. But back in those days, we didn't have Mindstorm, we didn't have VEX, we didn't have any. I mean, there were erector sets, and I had this thing. Actually, it was called Capsella. And I don't know if anybody out there remembers what Capsella is, but it was this plastic bubbles, and you connect the bubbles together using, they have like a hexagonal joint. And inside the bubbles were different things, like maybe one had a motor, and one had some gears, and they had wheels and propellers and fun stuff like that.
I had an erector set too when I was a kid, but when I was a kid, they were very sharp metal pieces. This was like stuff that you would get now at the hardware store that have basically brackets.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Nowadays, everything's really, really safe for kids. Back then, when we were doing this stuff, you'd get cut. You'd get hurt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, there was an element of danger to play, which has been taken out in more recent times. And I think that, that's the thing. If you only have to put Lego together, like two by 4 bricks together like this once, to see the teeth pry marks on it. If there's an element of danger, you learn, or stepping on a brick, in the dark. You learn what that feels like, and that registers in your brain. These days, I don't know.
Sounds
kids
like
have it too easy.
You and your mom might have had a lot of conversations about lost Legos on the ground.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's that pain, the most painful thing on earth for some reason. It's just a Lego.
It's incredibly painful. Yes, except for the only pain that I found that matches that is stepping on an integrated circuit. The chip.
Yes.
It's dead bug. Yeah, you step on a 555 in the middle of the night, and you'll know intense pain.
What was grade school like for you? Did you excel at that?
We moved around a lot. That's it for this school. No.
You just set them up as you went away, walking in slow-mo, and they blew up behind you?
Yeah, that's,
That's how you go?
It's very much, that's how I became successful. No, we moved around a lot, and so I got to learn how to make new friends and fit in fairly quickly. But grade school was, yeah, I would say reasonably easy.
So wait a second, you were able to go from school to school and make new friends. I would think that makes somebody more insular, especially if you're an inside kid. Like I was like that. So I had a bunch of siblings when I was growing up, so I'd always be with that group. Did you have siblings growing up?
No, only child.
Only child.
Only child. Explains a lot.
So an indoor kid who made friends easily while moving around.
Oh, I wouldn't say it was easy. I learned how to make friends.
There's a technique, is there?
Well, yeah. So you find out what people are talking about, and then you figure out that technique, and it's buzzwords and let's see, what's the politically correct term? You learn all the buzzwords.
All the buzzwords.
And
very
then
diplomatic.
You can BS your way through.
Somebody's saying very Heathers in the chat room. Big Ginge. Heathers.
Yes.
Lots of clicks in school.
Oh yeah.
I like that.
I actually, even towards high school, managed to go between various cliques. But I was in a private school that was very small, so small in fact, my graduating class was 18 people.
Was it just really that cutthroat that people were just dropping off left and right? Start off with class of 200, end with 18, or is it?
I don't know. Yeah, that's right. Only the strong survive. No, it was just, I guess that's just how it went.
So I think it'd be safe to say you kind of lean towards the nerd tendencies because.
Oh, early on, yeah.
So what was college like? What were you into in college? Like I know when I went to college, I ended up taking a whole bunch of classes and found physics way too late in my education, like the third year. You're not switching majors in your third year, unless you're nuts and you want to spend another 3 years there and a lot of money. What classes did you like?
Well, I went directly into engineering, electrical engineering, and it was based on my interest in making things and interest in computers. And I jumped right into my classes. However, I wasn't as good as math as a lot of other people who were in engineering who were great at math. I'm good, but I'm not, like the most. And if you're good in math, engineering is so easy. It's so easy. Like this friend of mine, Cynthia, she would just walk into a test, just waltz into a test, like, blah, 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 and she'd be like, Grant, can I copy your homework? I'm like, okay, and she'd be like, I think you got number 5 wrong, as she's copying my homework.
Oh, one of those, super intelligent, and it came easy to her, that kind of thing. Yeah, I had to work really hard to get any decent grades too. Like math for me was like that, and engineering though I never thought about. Other than did you live in the dorms?
No, I was. My grandmother's house wasn't far from campus, and so my friend and I, Ed, moved into her house, and so I lived off campus, and it was a fairly quick commute, like 5 minutes down Exposition Boulevard.
Is it actually called that? Are you serious? Or this is part of a joke because you're explaining something?
No, it's called Exposition.
Exposition. Yeah.
Exposition Boulevard.
It's like, I'm explaining something right now. Exposition.
Exposition. Yeah, no. Yeah. Let me take you on a walk down Exposition Boulevard. No. It was actually called Exposition Boulevard. Anyway, so it was nose to the grindstone in engineering for me. It was in the library. I had a small group of friends, there were like maybe 5 or 6 of us, and we would study together. And you had to form these kind of, for survival, you had to form these pods of people, and you would just kind of, work together and work on your homework. And we actually made a game show out of it, where, it's like, okay, when we do our homework, all right, my buddy Wade, okay, Wade, get up to the board and, let's work this out. And he would explain his thought process, and we each took turns. And it was really helpful for working through these various problems and learning.
So what were the game show elements? Did you have buzzers
No,
built
no, no,
in,
no,
or
no.
do you
Just,
have...
just in terms of you get up in front of your friends and essentially teach them what you're doing, but you have to stand up in front.
And it just seemed
at
like
the board.
It just seemed like something like an engineering group would be doing. It's like, I'm going to build some buzzers. We're going to have a contest. We're going to have lights go
Yeah.
off when I select it, and a penalty if you fail.
If we had time for all that, we weren't trying hard enough, or maybe we were trying too hard. But yeah, I enjoyed engineering, but it was tough. It was tough because in my third year, my junior year, I quit, and I was like, this is not good. I'm falling asleep in my classes. I don't have focus. This sucks. I remember I was taking electrophysics and physics 3 and calc 3, like all the least fun classes. I'm sorry if you're an electrophysics guy, I don't know. But for me, the least fun classes. And I was falling asleep. And so I was like, you know what? Forget this. If I'm going to do this, I have to want to do it, if I'm going to be successful at it. And so I had that conversation with my mom, and she was really supportive. I was scared to death, because most of the kids who I was in school with, their parents, if they didn't perform, their parents were like, you're done. So I was scared, but I'm glad I did. And she was like, you know what, you should be happy doing what you're doing. So I quit. And I said, I want to be a screenwriter. I want to go to the cinema school and do something creative, something super creative. So I went to the cinema school, and USC Cinema is well known, very tough school to get into. And so I went there and I was like, hey, I'm a student here, can I audit a class? And I'm like, no. Can I sit in on a class? No. And I was like, all right, fine. So I talked to one of the admissions directors, just chatted with him, told him about my background. He goes, you know what? Based on your background, you should go down and talk to Tom Holman. I'm like, who's Tom Holman? He said, Tom Holman is the TH of the THX sound system in Lucasfilm, and he's a professor here. He works in the sound department. He's an engineer. He's doing what you want to be doing, which is combine something technical and something creative. And so I was like, okay. So
How old are you when this is happening? You're a junior in college.
Yeah.
Trying to switch totally from engineering to screenwriting.
Yeah.
And they're telling you to go talk to the TH and THX. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
This wasn't daunting at all? You're thinking about doing this? And
No. I marched right down to Tom's office, and I said, Mr. Holman? He goes, yes. And Tom is great. He still teaches at USC. And at that time, he had a really tiny office and just total absent-minded professor. The office was floor-to-ceiling papers and SMPTE journals and IATSE this, and all the AES journals, all the different organizations that he was a member of, and like kind of, senior fellow and things like that, all stacked up. And so I went down to his office and I said, Mr. Holman? He goes, yes. He's got glasses, large guy, very boyish face. And I said, Mr. Holman, did you invent THX? He goes, yes, I did. I was like, that's cool. And behind him is like the technical award that you get from the Academy for the invention of THX. And so
papers everywhere and a big thing of gold sitting over there.
Yeah, it's like a plaque. And so I'm like, you know what? I think you could use a personal assistant. And he goes, because I looked at his office, and I said, well, I'm interested in this field. Could I come and help you? And he goes, well, do I have to pay you? And I said, no, I'll do it for free. And so for 6 months, I was Tom Holman's personal assistant, and he was awesome because with that, I had full access to all the classes that he taught, including Cinema 241, which is like the audio class for filmmakers, where you learn about how the basics of sound in films, and all his TA classes and the sound department, and he would give me things to read and take me to meetings. I mean, he was awesome. I highly recommend getting a mentor, people out there. So
That just seems like crazily gutsy to even do any of that. Coming up with that kind of job idea on the spot.
yeah.
You didn't like this. That's that same first meeting. You're saying, okay, I'm going to be your. Well, I'm asking to be personal assistant.
It was the second. I think the first meeting, I was like, "Did you invent THX?" Yes. Wow, that's really cool. Chatted for a minute. I'm like, "Okay, I got to go." But it was that night, and then the next day, I was like, "Hey, Tom." Yeah.
Interesting. So either you're quick on your feet and/or a great schemer.
Yes.
This is good.
Yes. Good skills.
What about the interest in screenwriting? I mean, obviously that had to be there for years for you to even think that you're going to dedicate your life and switch, and this is going to keep you awake in class or keep you interested for life. Where was the origin and the interest in screenwriting?
I've always been a good writer. In fact, on my SATs, I scored higher on my verbal than I did on my math. So, you know, back in the days when you had, I don't know.
Was that a 1600 back then?
Yes, that's right.
I was also then, that class.
Yeah.
I split evenly both times.
Did you? I did.
Pointless.
I scored the same both times, and it was both verbal higher than math. So, but yeah, that's that sort of creative writing process. And I had a great teacher in high school, Mrs. Duffy, and you know, during creative writing, that was one of my favorite classes. So I thought, hey, maybe that's, you know, something that I would like to explore. And you know, nowadays I do a lot of side projects, and writing is turning out to be one of the things, particularly with web-based projects, because you could write something, put together a cast, get it filmed, and get it out there in a matter of weeks, whereas, you know, TV takes months and then films take years. I mean, it's just like this interesting scale of how quickly you can get your content out there.
So when you're working with Tom this whole time, do you ever actually end up going, I guess, matriculating back into school, or are you just auditing these classes coming in? Okay. What was that like?
So I worked with Tom for 6 months, and I organized his office, I think, for the first month or so. And then he's like, okay, look, I got something for you. I've got a research project. And so I ended up testing, I forget how many pairs, probably like 60 pairs of the Sony MDR V6 headphone, which was popular in those days for sound mixers, and I got a response curve for it. So after 6 months of testing all these headphones, different pairs of headphones to get an average response curve, crunching all this data, coming up with one final curve, and I hand it to Tom, and I'm like, Tom, this is it. You know, I've got it. Here's the final thing. And he looks at it and goes, oh, that's great. Puts it up on the shelf. I'm like, but he eventually used it, but you know, it was anticlimactic after that. And so then I realized, you know what? It's actually time. I do believe that I want to go back into engineering. I do want to graduate from that. And he's like, great, that's awesome. So I continued working in the sound department as a technician, like fixing things and wiring patch bays and stuff like that. Then, and while returning to my engineering classes. So I ended up graduating in engineering, and at the end of my junior year, that summer, that I completed, I was like, Tom, you know, there's an internship at Lucasfilm. And I was like, you know, and in the summer, it was really, in those days, there were like, I don't know, 12 positions and 600 or 800 applicants. And so, or maybe more.
It's probably lots and lots.
Yeah, maybe there's a lot more. I don't remember, but there were a lot of applicants. And I was like, Tom, would you mind writing me a recommendation, you know, for THX, since we've worked together these number of years? And he goes, just put a note in there telling him to ask me about
like in your cover letter?
Yeah, and
Okay.
so needless to say, I got the internship, and I went to work at Home THX, and you know, that's the okay. So that's my other tip. Number one, find a mentor. Number two, get an internship. That's the path to success. There you go, right there.
That's what it takes. I think I got like a million more questions.
Yeah, I know.
Because this is like just the beginning.
Rambling.
This is amazing. Because like I wouldn't say this isn't not luck. It just seems like guts. It takes a lot of guts to do these kinds of things, to switch paths and to go.
It's scary.
And
it's
just,
very scary.
I know when I was a student talking to professors, to me it was like, I don't know, sir. I'm all scared and nervous and everything. So like just be like, hey, I can be your assistant, and then like, hey, a letter of recommendation, and then getting internships. This is obviously leads to some amazing success already.
Yeah.
But we should take a quick break and thank a sponsor of Triangulation, and that would be lynda.com. Now, lynda.com is an online learning company, so it helps anyone lets anyone learn creative software and business skills to achieve their professional and personal goals. Lynda.com, if you have a subscription there, members get unlimited access to a vast library of high-quality, current, and engaging video tutorials all across a wide variety of subjects. Now me, in my old life, I used to work with Final Cut Pro a lot, and then Apple changed that, and I wanted a way out, and I want to use something like Premiere. I'm currently taking a look at the video course called Premiere Pro CS6 for Avid and Final Cut editors. So it kind of helps me learn to transition over. Then I can use PCs or Macs or whatever I want to use, so I don't have to be locked into the old Final Cut or theoretically be subject to the whims of Apple changing the entire interface, thereby driving me insane. So I moved over to Premiere thanks to lynda.com. I'm still learning there. There's tons and tons of high quality content at lynda.com. There's over 2,000 courses. So if Premiere isn't your thing, there's all over the place. They've got courses that in 3D printing, SEO, social media marketing, WordPress essentials, DSLR video. So if you want to go out and shoot video and you have a DSLR, there are tips that are different for DSLRs than there would be with camcorders. This is definitely very, very important stuff. The instructors are working professionals at the top of their fields and expert teachers. They make it really easy to learn. So when you're watching these videos, you'll get the gist of it very, very quickly. High quality video production from state-of-the-art studios. You're not dealing with homemade YouTube videos where you can't hear anything or the lighting is bad and you have no idea what's going on. High quality right here. Curated course content. Each Lynda course is carefully structured so that users can learn from start to finish or jump to a specific chapter for quick answers. So if you have a general idea, you can just skip around. You don't have to watch one long 2-hour movie. There's playlists and you can just jump around. That's how I was learning Premiere. There's also searchable transcripts. So if you were trying to figure out, hey, what is that? What is the import? Where's import? You can look for that. It allows you to search inside a video to save time and find exactly what you're looking for. Also, there's bookmarks and playlists that allow you to organize your courses into a customized learning path. And the courses are for all levels. They cover a wide range of technical skills, creative techniques, business strategies, and more. There's even things about how to negotiate a raise for your job. So if you want to learn anything at lynda.com, they've got pretty much everything there. You can watch from your computer, a tablet, or a mobile device, and you can switch back and forth on your devices and pick up on the chapter where you left off. So if I started on my PC, I can move to my iPad, and I'll have the same thing in my playlist of the course I was looking at. You get to set the pace. Mobile access makes it super easy. It's only $25 a month for access to Lynda's entire course library. Or for $37.50 a month, you can subscribe to the premium plan, which includes the same exercise files that the instructors use, and they let you follow along with the instructor's project, again, using the exact same assets. And You could try out lynda.com right now with a free 7-day trial. Visit lynda.com/triangulation to access the entire library. That's over 2,000 courses for free for 7 days. That's lynda.com/triangulation. We thank lynda.com for the sponsorship of Triangulation. Lots of great stuff there. Switching over, way easier. Thanks to them.
We should have that conversation another time about, because I think that I'm like watching your screens here. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'd like to learn like that. Like, we should have that conversation, over drink somewhere else.
Sure, we should
about the future of education.
Oh yeah, with all these, well, they're called MOOCs now, which I think is a weird name for it, but it's like multiple, what does it stand for? Massive Online something course. I'm losing the thing, but it's MOOC. I'm sure the chat room will know what it is, and if you're watching live, if we have a chat room, we're going to take your questions for Grant relatively soon. But what does MOOC stand for? I can't remember.
I don't know, but yeah, that's really cool to be able to hone in exactly the type of information that you want to learn and be able to absorb that at your own pace, which is like awesome.
There we go. Thank you, Replicant, in the chat room. Massive open online courses. But MOOC, at least where I grew up in New York, it was an insult. It's
right.
like, hey,
Totally,
MOOC,
yeah.
and then you're like, that's fighting words, and then you're getting into a skirmish.
I guess they've changed that, redefined that word now.
Yeah, you could tell that it's an open kind of thing when there's no marketing department to come up with, that acronym is.
Yeah, maybe we should rethink that.
Is it Moose? It's not Moose. It's MOOC. Yeah, we can talk. Actually, you can talk about that now if you want to.
That's all right. Let's
delve into your life some more.
Sure, why not?
You actually mentioned mentoring. I think I read somewhere that you're engaged in mentoring of people now. What's that like, and who are you helping out in what field?
It's awesome, and I'll tell you how it started out. I was working at Industrial Light and Magic in the model shop, and my specialty was electronics and mechanics, and if anything lit up or moved, that was sort of my domain. And Don Yamada, our outreach coordinator, said, "Hey, Grant, there's this robot team in Richmond, California, a small inner city school. They're struggling, and they've asked us for some help. Would you go over there for, I don't know, like an hour a week, and just see if you can help them out?" And so me and a couple guys went to the school, met with the students, and great group of students. And the thing about Richmond High School is that it's not in a great area, and their students have to worry about things that students at other schools don't have to worry about, like guns in the classroom. And if it sounds familiar, Richmond High School is what the Coach Carter movie is based on. That's that very same school in real life. So, but anyway, the other thing about Richmond High School, about the robotics program, is that if you're doing robotics at a school like that, it's because you really want to be doing robotics. You have a great interest in this. And so as a result, those students are highly motivated, and they will do whatever you say, and will absorb all of that information. So that first year, I went to the first meeting, and we're like, okay, well, we'll come back in a couple days. And then there was another meeting, and then I was like, you know what? You only get this particular program is a very short time span. It's the first robotics is what they were doing, and it's a national program, and every school gets a kit of parts, and every year there's a new challenge, and so they have a very short time frame, and they work with industry mentors. So I was like, you know what, we're going to have to start meeting more often. And so it got to be like we were meeting on Saturday, like 8 hours a day, and then after school every day. And it happened to be that Richmond was halfway between ILM and where I lived in Oakland, and so it was pretty convenient to go back and forth. And so that year, that school won a judges award, the rookie year, which is awesome. You know, just because they were such a great group of students. And I remember one of the kids sitting next to me was like, you know, they called our names. They did this great thing where they describe your team, and you're like, wait a minute, that sounds like us. And then they say it's teammate 41, and you know, we all go up and accept the award. And the kid sitting next to me, he's like, wow, he didn't know how to put it into words. So the closest thing he could get was, wow, I feel like I just won a Grammy. It was awesome.
What kind of robot did you guys build?
That year, the robot was supposed to take soccer balls, I think, yeah, it was soccer balls, scoop them up, and then put them into a sort of mobile pen. And the pen was composed of PVC tubes, and it was pretty high. So you had to get them from the ground, scoop them up, and get them up high. And so the robot that we built was called Robzilla, and it had this great sort of wedge-shaped head and a long neck. And so the neck, what it would do, it had a chain. And the chain would scoop up soccer balls and then kind of bring it up to the head. And then the head would split open the tubes and spread them.
Okay.
And then spit the soccer balls in. It was cool.
How many designs do you think you ran through and just threw out, or at least that team, before you settled on this wedge splitter chain machine?
Yeah.
The
So
Robzilla.
the thing is, my attitude was, it's not my robot. It's your robot, and you guys, as a team, have to figure out what ideas you like best and vote on it. And I will help you build this robot and make design suggestions, but you know, I'm not going to tell you what to do. So we probably went through that year, I can't remember, but you know, every year it's dozens of ideas, and that's part of it. You know, you brainstorm, you try things out, and not everything works.
You're still involved in that mentoring program?
Unfortunately, I haven't been for a couple of years, but I did it for 5 years, and the students in that year, that very first year, are still involved. And now, like, one of them stayed on as an instructor at the school, and so he runs the program. And the guys and his brother, and this is the funny thing too, is in this program, it's like, oh, my brother wants to join. And so we have multiple siblings in this program. You know, it's like 3 brothers, a sister, 2 twins, and a lot of them are still involved. They're now the mentors for that team, which is great.
Well, that's awesome. And before we started the show, Grant, you tweeted out a bunch of asking for questions from the audience. We got the chat room right now. Let's take some of your questions. I know we're on a small delay, so I'm going to go to Twitter first and ask some of the questions that they've bothered to ask.
Sure.
This question from Jim J. How close are we really to building a robot with working artificial intelligence?
Ooh. I'm not really an AI expert. You know, I'm more of a hardware guy than a software guy. I don't know, as a matter of fact. I have a feeling.
That's a valid answer.
I have a feeling, though, that there's probably somebody somewhere with a DARPA grant that says, actually, we're a lot closer than you think.
At DARPA, yeah, they got some amazing stuff. Well, the thing about DARPA I always see is that dog. You ever see that?
Oh, Big Dog.
That thing freaks me out. They try to kick it over. It's like bouncing
You
back.
feel bad for Big Dog when they kick it over and it's like...
But then it comes back.
And then it stumbles back.
Question over there from Hot Milk GT. How is it working with R2-D2?
Awesome. Dream come true. So that happened when I was at Lucasfilm. It started when I was working at THX. And my friends Don Bees and Nelson Hall, Don was the archivist. And so they would send the R2s out whenever there was a commercial or personal appearance or a theater opening or some VIP event where they want to have the droids show up, they would actually send out the droids from the movie, dating back to 1983. So they were Empire era droids, and they would send them out. And so it was actually through Don and Nelson that I got into the ILM model shop, because I was working at THX, and how I met them is our department coordinator was friends with their department coordinator, and they wanted to have lunch all the time, so we all ended up having lunch together, and so we were hanging out kind of by default, and so we got to be friends. And they also did a lot of work at ILM in the model shop, and they're like, you know what, you should come and help us. It's like, really? And they go, yeah, because right now they were looking for help at that particular time, and it was when they were working on, they had a bunch of movies in, all simultaneously. It was The Lost World, sequel to Jurassic Park, Mars Attacks, Men in Black, and then there was Star Trek First Contact. And all these movies, like normally, you know, you maybe work on 2 movies. I mean, if it's a major movie like a Star Wars movie with a lot of shots, you only work on 1, and that'll encompass all the resources that you have for the shot. But at this point, there were 4 movies in it, and they were looking for help, and that's how I got into the model shop. And based on, you know, and so I worked at the model shop. I did the Energizer Bunny.
You made the Energizer Bunny, the one that was that pink one that was successfully a mascot for a battery.
Yes.
Everyone loved pounding that drum.
Yes, it was the, let me see, technically the 3rd generation, but the 2nd major generation of bunnies.
Okay, tell me about the advancements between bunnies.
Okay.
Like what advanced between 2nd to 3rd gen?
So basically what happened was the 1st generation bunnies had a few problems, but I think there were more manpower problems. See, that 1st generation of bunny rolled with a semi-trailer with a full machine shop, and they had multiple puppeteers, SAG puppeteers. It was a big production. It was a very big production.
This is the thing that just pounds on the drum and goes back and forth?
Oh yeah.
Am I mixing something up? This is the...
No, that's
okay.
that's the one. The one that looks like a toy. By the way, the Energizer Bunny is about, let's say, this tall.
Oh, so
Drum's about, there you go, about this big around. So he's bigger, a lot bigger than most people think. But he used to, in those days, have a huge entourage, and so they got into a contract dispute, and the guy who built the 1st generation, somehow he actually owned those physical bunnies, and so he's like, okay, fine, I'm out of here, and I'm taking my bunnies with me. And so
That's the most
drop the mic.
Most interesting threat ever.
Yeah.
I'm leaving and I'm taking my bunnies with me.
And
it happened.
Yeah, and the Eveready Battery Company, as they were called in those days, suddenly had no mascot. That they had put, you know, millions of dollars into developing this brand, and so they're like, you know, world's greatest model shop, can you build us 3 new Energizer Bunnies? And all they had, were 2 posers. So the poser bunnies are, you know, just like a Hollywood stand-in. They are dimensionally equivalent to the mechanical bunnies, but they have nothing inside. They just got an armature, so you can kind of pose the arms, and
set lighting and things around it, that kind of thing.
yeah. And so they've got the look. That's the look that it should have, and then it was up to us to figure out the mechanics. And we did it in I think it was like 3 months. And each bunny, I can't really tell you how much they cost, but I think
Like Cadillac Escalades.
Ferrari
Ferrari.
Testarossa.
Oh, okay. So not Escalades, multiple Escalades per bunny.
Per bunny.
Per bunny.
Per bunny.
That looks deceptively simple in the commercial. I guess that's the art.
That's the art. Because, you know, in that size, I think each bunny has something like 16 servos at least to do all the various things. It requires 3 people to operate. There's a guy who runs the head, and so the head kind of goes back and forth and does his little signature move. Then there's the arms guy who, and that was one of the things that Energizer, there's 2 requests. Number 1, the bunny has to run on Energizer batteries. It's a truth in advertising thing.
Makes sense.
Which is tough. It's really tough because consumer grade cells are, I mean, for a number of reasons, you know, chief among them likely is safety, so that they can't really discharge at the rates that you need to run these motors, power-hungry motors. And so the only solution to that is, instead of using 4 batteries, I used 44 batteries in parallel. And so there's like, they're literally, I don't know if you can find a picture, but there exist pictures of me holding a black pack that looks like a giant AK-47 clip. It's like, you know, this thick and this big. And that's where all the batteries were. And they were located in the drum.
So it had to be housed within. It couldn't be like wired or anything like that.
No tether, no nothing. Everything is self-contained. It's all radio controlled. So, and so the second requirement was that the arms had to be precise. They had to be precision controlled, because how they were doing it before was there was a guy whose job it was, and he had a metronome and he had a controller, and he would do this. And they were having trouble syncing it in post. And so, like, you know, for this generation, since we're able to make requests, can you make the arms precise, consistent, but also something that you can change the rate? So I'm like, okay, I can do that. So that was my job. I gave the bunny his beat.
You gave the bunny his beat.
And I started out as the arms guy. And I made it easy on myself, because really, since it was microcontroller controlled, you just flip a switch, and then he starts beating. You flip another switch, he stops, and he does this little...
The twirl?
Yeah, and then he goes and flip the switch, and he goes back. But then I kind of got promoted to the harder job, which is driver. Driver's really hard. So there's head guy, arms guy, driver, and then you have the fluffer.
A fluffer, I would assume, has a different connotation in the bunny world than other
right.
film worlds.
You fluff the tail.
I see.
You fluff the tail.
You fluff the tail.
You fluff the tail, and you make sure the fur is looking its best, and you polish the little glasses.
Why would driving be the most difficult compared to the precision hand movements and the head turnings?
Because...
How unwieldy is a bunny?
Surprisingly. See, the thing is, the bunny has to be very nimble. And because, you know, he comes through and then he does this turn. Mm-hmm. And the turn he does is you turn in place, and then you end up facing the same direction, and you continue to go. The problem with the bunny is that he's incredibly top-heavy.
Because the batteries are all in the
drum. The batteries are in the drum, way up high. And so nimble plus top-heavy means it's really, really hard to drive. And take into account that each one of these is like a Ferrari Testarossa, and you're driving at 6 inches from the edge of a counter where kids are having breakfast cereal. And you have to hit that move every time. It's a very stressful job, very difficult. So,
I think we've beaten this dead bunny.
Yeah.
I think this is.
And then R2D2.
R2D2. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at your IMDb trivia. Is this true? You're one of 3 official operators of R2D2 for Lucasfilm.
Yes. The other 2 were Don and Nelson. These days, though, they don't use official operators like they used to.
What
back in
defines
the
an
day.
official operator versus an unofficial one? Why would an unofficial person be even allowed near one of these?
Well, that's what it is. Only the official operators were allowed near the original movie props. Unofficial operators are guys that have their own R2 unit, not a Lucasfilm screen used one, but one that they've made themselves. And,
Okay.
and there are a lot of, these days, there's a whole group, club, R2 Builders Club, and their R2s are good. They're very good. And I think that's why these days, Lucasfilm just hires them because it's easier. They come with their own unit, you know. You don't have to fly one specific guy because that's how come there were 3. There used to only be one. Don was the only operator, but there were multiple R2 units, and you have them for filming purposes. A lot of times there'll be like a stunt R2 that, you know, has motors, or a running one that goes very fast. But you always have backups, just in case, I don't know, one of them takes a spill. You swap them in. But there came a time where they needed more R2s in different cities all at the same time, like New York, Miami, Washington, D.C. It was during the re-release, the special edition, that they were having premieres all over the country, and they really wanted to have, like, okay, we need an R2, and we need an R2, and we need an R2. And so Don was like, you want to learn how to drive R2-D2? And I said, absolutely. Dream come true. It was awesome. But then the advantage I had was that I could also service R2.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, Nelson and I went to Japan, and I was working on R2. And it's a little known fact because, I don't know, I was scared to talk about it because I thought, you know, Lucasfilm would come after me, but for almost 10 years, I played C-3PO for personal appearances.
Wait, as a side gig, or this
As
was
an official,
an
well,
official-
as a Lucasfilm employee. So if there was a Burger King commercial,
They put you in this suit.
yes, yeah. So instead of flying Tony Daniels, who is C-3PO, he lives in England. So flying him all the way out here to go to a Burger King shoot in Phoenix, Arizona, or, you know, wherever it is, he would sit in an air-conditioned studio in London, record his lines, probably make as much or a lot more than I did as, you know, as just an employee. As an employee of one of the Lucas companies doing this, you know, in his spare time. I mean, I got paid for it, you know, obviously. By the way, there's a whole group of character appearance performers that's kind of like the IMF. If you're caught or captured, Lucasfilm will disavow any knowledge of you. But
So
yeah,
these are the
so
guys
there's
we
a
see in-
Chewbacca. There's a Chewbacca. There's 2 Vaders. There's an Ewok.
There's an Ewok.
An Ewok.
Okay.
There's
There's a couple of stormtroopers, has to be. Or are they
no.
interchangeable?
Whenever you need a stormtrooper, you call the 501st. They are, they're a charity group,
Okay.
but they're also like all across the country.
I was just thinking like the latest Disney ads. You see like Darth Vader walking around with stormtroopers. This was one of the official Darth Vaders, I'd assume, is in this thing.
Probably.
Interesting. Okay, so you've been C-3PO and R2-D2.
Yes.
So do you argue with yourself often?
Yeah, no. Well, I was talking to myself in public, but I try not to have arguments.
Somebody did ask in the chat room, what's your dream job? It seems like you probably have it already, but what is your dream job, or what was your dream job?
Oh, I've had multiple dream jobs. That's the question. Is like, what do you do after these jobs? Like, when I worked at at THX, I was blowing up surround sound equipment. I had the most awesome home theater ever, and I thought, this is an awesome job. And then when I started working at the model shop at ILM in the movies, this is an awesome job. And now Mythbusters, it's like, you know, we build robots, we crash cars, we blow things up. This is an awesome job. I don't know what I can do after this.
Fry cook? Just to balance it out?
I don't know. Yeah. Barista? I don't know. Apologies to all the baristas.
You'd end up like
out
having
there.
robots do everything if you were in Starbucks. I don't know if that'd be a good idea.
That'd
or
be
a great
awesome.
idea.
That'd be awesome. I could have a whole restaurant where there's no human cooks. I could call it the Replicator. That'd be awesome.
What do you want to eat? It doesn't matter as long as the components are there?
Yeah, as long as the recipe's in there. I mean, it should be pretty easy, right?
This sounds like a great idea that we should not be telling the internet.
That's right.
They are
That's what a recipe is, right? It's just an algorithm for preparing food.
Question in the chat. Curtis,
Is that an engineering? That's a really engineering thing to say.
that's how I
A
learned.
recipe is it's like a program that you write for preparation of food.
I used to do a lot of lab work in school. I had a bio degree, and so that's how I learned to cook. Because I'm like, oh, it's like lab instructions. I know how to do this.
See?
It's
It's time,
yeah.
materials, and time and technique.
Yeah, but my yield in lab was terrible then, and it's terrible now. It's like, hey, you got 4%. That means I burnt the chicken. Like, it doesn't work very well.
Yeah,
I think Curtis B in the chat room was asking, what was your favorite robot you built in ILM in your career?
Oh boy. Well, certainly R2 is up there, just because, you know, it's a familiar character from my childhood. What else did I do? You know, one of my favorites while I was at ILM was actually my combat robot, Deadblow, which was a hammer-based robot that had like the first one was like a sledgehammer.
Is this one for BattleBots or
Yeah, for BattleBots, yeah. And then later on it had a spike for.
I remember the spike.
Yeah,
That thing looked
piercing.
vicious.
Yeah, that was a great robot.
I would assume you're not much of you're not a spaz or clumsy kind of person. If you're working with such pressurized items or
Oh, yeah.
dangerous wedge-shaped things or spikes and hammers that are powered by robots,
Yeah.
what do you do for safety in those kinds of things? Do you test very far away?
Yeah, that's certainly a part of it. I mean, there's a whole.
Or did you learn that early on, I'd assume?
Yeah, yeah. There's a whole procedure. Like, you know, I usually have a pre-flight checklist that's like, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then when it comes down to, a lot of it is testing it by system. So like, you don't, first off, test everything all at once. You do the drive system separate from the weapon system, you know, and then when you're confident that everything is gonna pretty much work, then you try it all out all together at a great distance.
Oh, Harry Lamb in the chat room is asking, what's it like to be the dad of a robot skeleton?
Oh,
I'm assuming we're talking about
Jeff
Peterson.
Peterson.
Unless there's another one.
no robot skeletons in my closet.
Jeff Peterson is that robot sidekick on Craig Ferguson show on CBS.
The Late Late Show on CBS. So, yeah, Jeff is awesome. You know, when I first built Jeff, when Craig, by the way, I got contacted by the Late Late Show through one of their producers knew one of our PR people, and she's like, you know what, would you be interested in doing this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And she goes, Craig is so excited about this, he wants to get on the phone and tell you about this idea himself. And so that's where, you know, like what he wanted Jeff to be. And I pretty much had free reign to make him look like whatever I wanted to look like. And so that's how he got the mohawk, is because I wanted him to look like more than just a talking skeleton. I wanted him to have like a little bit more personality. Mm-hmm. And I knew that Craig had sort of a punk rock background. So I thought, I'll give him a mohawk. And the eyes, I went through a couple of different versions. I tried red, because there were 3 colors of, actually, I think there were 4 of high brightness LEDs. And so red, too aggressive, way too aggressive.
Because I think it mentioned somewhere on air about having like a Terminator robot style thing, and red would make sense for that. But
Yeah,
it looked
no, way too aggressive.
Okay.
You know, because in essence, Late Late Show is a comedy talk show, and so you can't have like this, you know, Terminator. Ha,
Probably.
Ha, ha. Yeah. that just doesn't work. I tried amber. There he goes. There's Jeff. I tried amber, and amber just was boring. And then I tried blue, and I'm like, that's it. And the funny thing is, I didn't know what Jeff would be dressed in. I didn't even think Jeff would be dressed. But he's like, no, I want him to look post-apocalyptic, like he's survived some kind of crazy cataclysmic event. And so like his suit, which is a really nice suit, is singed and torn, and it's been aged. I don't know.
I'm just imagining this in Craig's voice. He's kind of a fast-talking guy. I would imagine that if somebody's telling you how to build a post-apocalyptic robot sidekick for his late-night talk show on CBS, that seems like a very strange conversation to have at all.
It is. But, you know, he was really excited, and I wanted to do this, and, you know, he was like a kid, like, you know, it's like a kid asking Santa Claus, okay, can I, you know, I want a pony, and the pony, can the saddle be like this, and can he do tricks, can he, you know, and so that's how Jeff came to be, and it was. I remember originally he was like, I would like a box. Can I have a box with buttons I put on my desk? And like I push a button and he goes, ha, 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 and like he answers, you know, like, and I said, yes, but based on my professional opinion is that you should do this with a puppeteer off camera. I was like, well, you know, let's start with the button box. And so they tried the button box, and that lasted for a day. And he's like, this is too much to handle. And so they gave it to one of the writers off screen. And the voice was pre-recorded based on, originally I had 7 responses. So 7 things.
But who voiced it? Was it you?
No. The very first time, if you watch the very first episode, Jeff's voice is actually Craig doing a robot voice with some kind of pitch shifted. So it was almost impossible to understand a Scottish accent with this kind of robot thing with like some flanging applied to make it sound even more echoey and robotic. And so they decided to have a guy named Josh Robert Thompson, who, by the way, does the most amazing. He's a small Jewish guy. He does the most amazing Morgan Freeman voice ever. Like, he's so good. He was hired to do the Morgan Freeman voice for an ad series in Europe, where he's like, I forget the name of it. He's like, not Morgan or something, not Morgan Freeman. But anyway, so he did a lot of the voices, like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger and other things for the show. He was already kind of part of their staff. They bring him in once a week and, you know, do a thing. And so they recorded all the audio clips by the number of syllables. And so when I first programmed Jeff, I had 7 phrases. And they were like a 5-syllable one. And then a 7-syllable and a 3 and a 3 and a 2 and a 2. And so that's how they would just make up random things. And so for the first 2 years, maybe, there was a writer off stage that would trigger these random things. And Craig didn't know what Jeff was going to say. It would just be like a random thing. And that's how things like his catchphrase balls became very popular, because it was an easy thing for him to just go balls.
That's how that works.
Balls, yeah. And so, yeah, and then Josh took over full time, and now that's what they do, is he voices Jeff live, and he interacts with Craig. And so that's what, I just did a round of upgrades on Jeff. So
I've heard now both his arms move.
both arms move, which, and so he's got his head turns, and his jaw flaps, and then he's got both arms. And that's about the limit, I think, of what a single person could do and still kind of, maintain some semblance of control. Anything else?
You did this in your spare time, right? Like
Yeah.
We haven't talked about Mythbusters at all.
I know, isn't that weird?
Yeah, we're for like an
kinda
hour.
fun. I know.
Like you obviously have a job, and you're doing a lot of other projects. You're writing things, and you're working on web projects, and then you build a robot sidekick.
Yeah.
In your spare time. Maybe we should talk about this whole Mythbusters thing at some point.
Sure,
All right.
absolutely.
What's this question you're absolutely sick of hearing about Mythbusters?
What's your favorite myth? Everyone asks that. What's your favorite myth?
You don't have to answer it. It's up to you.
We always and everybody who works on the show, that's what people always ask. And so we started like making up answers just for fun. Different
Are
things.
you actually answering ones that don't exist on the show? Because that could screw with people's heads.
No. That we should though.
Things
Yeah,
that we
that time
proved
we
true.
busted that giant squid.
Remember that perpetual motion machine we proved was plausible? Do you remember that?
I know. That was so amazing. But there are various reasons, why something can be your favorite. Because it was super dangerous, or because the result was surprising.
You transitioned from basically you were behind the scenes, ILM and doing all that stuff. Now you somehow get to Mythbusters. I should ask that question as an interviewer. How did you get to Mythbusters? It's online. I think you were asked.
Yeah.
Somebody actually is like, hey, do you want to be on the show?
Yeah, pretty much. I was working at ILM with Adam and Tori. And, we worked together for many years. And in fact, Tori and I worked on a number of shows. We'd often be paired as a team we build like a crew of several people, 7 to 10 people would build a model, but then you'd want a minimal shooting crew that when it came time to do all the motion control shots, one guy to handle all the lights, all the miniature lights, and the other guy to handle all the aesthetics, all the painting and sculpting and things like that. So Tori and I would often work together on various projects, like Van Helsing, which is a horrible movie.
It looked
but our
good.
stuff was great. Yeah, our Dracula's Castle was awesome.
Yeah, the plot that's a whole other. You're not responsible for the plot. Yes, you are. You were a writer. No.
Yeah, not on that. That's for sure. And Jamie would hire me at night and on weekends to come and work for him because my specialty was radio control, and so he'd be like, "Well, I'll tell you why Jamie liked hiring me, which I don't often tell people, but I'll tell you because this is fun." Jamie, I think, hired me because I was very good at what I did, and that's what I did working for ILM. But B, I liked working with Jamie, and I did it for fun. And so the first time I worked for Jamie, he's like, "Well, thanks for doing that thing. What do you want?" And like, bottle of Jack Daniels. Okay, done. Jamie's really, really cheap.
Okay.
Another time, he used to make this, what he called nutritious paste. See, Jamie's all about efficiency, right?
Okay.
Eating takes too long. And I sympathize with that. Eating takes a long time. Well, I could work on a lot more if I didn't have to sit down and eat. So Jamie actually used to be a chef. And among his many, many jobs, he was a pet store owner, a chef, a dive master. I mean, he's a jack of all trades. But chef was actually one of his jobs. And so he came up with this idea for a nutritious paste. And you would combine a number of grains, proteins, and I don't know, something else. and so it would end up, but it was always a combination of 3 things, and like 4 grains, 3 proteins, and 4 fruits or something else, and it'd be like, so this is 4, 3, 4, and he would put everything into a blender, blend it all up, make a huge batch, put it into little like Ziploc bags, like, sandwich bags. And then at lunch, he would get them out of the freezer, put them in the microwave, heat them up, snip off the corn, and
Like a pastry bag.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so it was like, well, I'm done with lunch in like 20 seconds. It's pretty awesome, and it doesn't taste all that bad. And I became obsessed with this. I was like, all right. So for one of my jobs, I was like, your next batch, you're going to give me a whole batch of whatever your nutritious paste you come up with. And he was trying all kinds of interesting things, like chocolate and coffee beans and red wine, in addition to all your standard types of grains and whatever. So it was interesting. I had 2-gallon bags of it, and I think I tried like one little. I distilled it into one sandwich bag and tried, and I was like, okay, that's not. I can see this not becoming something that catches on with people who enjoy taste.
When was this happening? What year is this? Is that he's making this
Let's
paste?
see, that was before I started on Mythbusters. That was probably 2002,
Because
something like
the
that.
weird power gel things exist now.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
it was on to something.
Yeah.
But I was thinking like that might be like Bachelor Chow from Futurama. That'd be like perfect. You don't have to like think. It's, just, it's in a bag.
Yeah.
Chat room going off about the idea of eating paste.
Just Soylent Green. Yes. Yes.
So what, you think because you ate the paste that's why you ended up on Mythbusters? Or did I miss something?
No. That was
Okay.
just how I got to know Jamie. Because
of paste eating.
Yeah, because
it's working really well.
we worked together, and so he enjoyed hiring me because I would just do it for fun. And his wife Eileen was like, "Are you going to play robots with Grant again?" Because he had a fighting robot named Blendo that was tremendously successful. We never fought because we were in different weight classes, but we'd always go and talk about robots. So Adam and Jamie got approached by a producer who had this idea for a show where they take urban legends and they use science to test them. But the trick was that they would be the type of people who actually could set up the experiments. They weren't just talking heads. They were people who came from backgrounds that could set up things in an intelligent way, execute the experiments, and then talk about the results. And so this producer, his name's Peter Reese, he had interviewed Jamie for a news magazine show. He's like, when he had this idea, he's, I know, I've got the perfect guy. And so he's like, hey, Jamie, will you host the show? So Jamie's like, well, I'm not so good at talking on camera, but whatever. Like, I have a friend who's good, and that's how Adam came to be on the show. And so they did a demo reel, just farting around in Jamie's shop. Like Jamie had this this pair of roller skates that he motorized with drill motors. And so Adam, check this out. And then I'm like, hey Jamie, you got any fireworks? Oh yeah. And that was what led to the pilot for Mythbusters. And so the boys got the show, and they needed help. And so they're like, well, I remember actually when they asked, because that's when Tori left. We just finished Van Helsing, I think, and he was like, I'm gonna go. And they asked me, I'm like, it was between Star Wars episodes 2 and 3, so I couldn't leave.
Kind of busy.
And I'd just done Junkyard Wars, and I wasn't really hot about the reality aspect of that show, because that was a very contrived reality. Towards the end of the show, and originally in that series it was great, because it was all about the building, but later on it became more like they wanted to incorporate more like MTV Real World and that sort of confessional room. Like, this guy's really pissing me off.
Bring up some drama so you could have that.
And they manufactured the drama, and I didn't like that. And so I was like, nah, I'll wait on this idea. And so they started the show, and then after they had Tori and Carrie and another girl named Scotty and Christine, and so that's how they started the show. And after Scotty left and Christine left, they needed another builder type, and by that time I'd finished episode 3, thus fulfilling my geek destiny. And I was like, you know what, I'm ready for a change. I could do something different. So I did, and that's how I got on Mythbusters. And then it was like, it was funny because I got a call from Linda Wolkovich, who used to be the assistant manager at the model shop at ILM, and from Jamie. Like, well, they're looking for another builder. You should probably apply. It's a pretty good gig. And so I was like, all right, fine. So I did a on-screen kind of test interview, and then I sat down with Adam and Jamie and Carrie and Linda, and just they filmed it while we just kind of sat around and chatted. And then that was pretty much it.
So, was there any weirdness in transitioning over? I mean, it's one thing to be building stuff and then having cameras around you, and then having to explain the stuff to camera constantly, or like I guess have to reshoot things potentially, and like.
Oh yeah.
What was that transition like? Because you were behind the scenes. Now you're in front of the camera, and now everyone knows who you are.
Yeah.
It's another thing.
It was a huge difference. Like, I'd been on camera before for BattleBots,
Right.
and for Junkyard Wars, and I'd done a little bit of stage work in college, so it wasn't a foreign concept to me to be able to talk in front of a camera. But the major difference is that they are with you all the time. Like, if you're building something and something goes wrong, you just kind of shove it under the shelf or throw it away. Nobody has to know you screwed it up. On Mythbusters, that's what they want to see. They want to, that's the gravy when something you do doesn't turn out like you want it to be, and it blows up, and you're like, that sucked. Or you drop something on your foot, or you fall down, or something like that. And so suddenly, it really slows down the whole building process, because they want to see each part of the process. And being behind the scenes and being a professional builder, you get used to doing things fairly quickly. But on Mythbusters, they want to see the whole process, and they don't use the whole process, and a lot of times they will breeze right through it. They'll blow through a 3-day build in like 3 seconds by montage, and it's done. It's like, okay, well, I spent 3 days on that, and that's it. Okay, but it became. So I got, that took a little getting used to, having them around you all the time. And then the whole aspect of becoming someone who is recognizable and recognized on the street was just totally crazy. It's a strange thing, even now, it's a strange and wonderful thing to be able to make someone's day just by being yourself and being in a room and saying hi. It's mind-blowing. It really is.
Should I ask the question, where's the weirdest place you've been recognized?
Yeah, the bathroom.
Bathrooms.
No. Yeah, I try and avoid talking to people in bathrooms. Just
smart idea.
Policy in general. But no, you know, the more interesting thing is, who have you been mistaken for?
Should I ask? You just already asked it.
Yeah, I've been mistaken for. I was at an airport, and to be fair, I had on a V-neck shirt and I was wearing a baseball cap. And these guys came over to me and they were really excited. And like, oh my God, you know, we're really big fans. You know, can we have a picture? I'm like, yeah, sure. And like, yeah, you know, I really, really love your work. You're so good on The Walking Dead. And like, I'm actually not on The Walking Dead. I'm on Discovery Channel. And they're like, you know, because they recognize me. Because clearly they've seen the show Mythbusters on Discovery, but they don't know exactly. A lot of times they don't know exactly where. I was in Vegas. I got mistaken for the guy from The Hangover.
Ken Jeong, that guy?
Yeah, Ken Jeong. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm not Ken Jeong.
Did the person insist you were?
Yeah, yeah. And he followed me. I'm like, I am not Ken Jeong. Yeah. Who else? Oh, wow, blanking on his name. From Star Trek.
John
the
Cho?
Reboot, yeah, John Cho. So, but it's funny, because a lot of people also was just like, did we go to school together? Are you a friend of my son's?
You ever just answer yes to that? You're like,
no.
you know?
No.
You're like, yeah, you know, we used to go to grade school together. Miss Harris, she was great. I gotta go.
Yeah, no. I really, once I decided to, you know, screw with someone and like, God, has anybody ever told you that you look just like the guy from Mythbusters? And once I was at a luau in Hawaii and I was like, yeah, I get that all the time. It was just weird. And then he kept staring at me like the whole
It wasn't like holding up a smartphone
time.
the whole time, like,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Profile, pinch and zooming.
No. So as a rule, I don't. I just play it straight. It's the best policy.
I think we've spent over an hour. I said only about an hour. I've been bugging you for far too long.
That's all right.
We got any more questions from the chat room, unless you need to run? Let's see. I could ask, let's see, can you ask Grant about how real the science is behind the show? I'm sure that's something you've heard a lot about. I mean, that's been a thing mentioned a lot in the press.
We definitely try as hard as we can to get it right. Because when you're on a show like ours, there's a million watchdogs out there. And they're very vocal about your science and what you do on the show. And at the end of the day, it is entertainment. The reality, though, is that we take the basic concepts of science, the scientific method, and we make it more accessible by wrapping it with explosions and car crashes and crazy stuff going on. But yeah, I mean, it's as real as you can get in an entertainment setting. You can't, you know, in real science, you have to have a giant sample set. In TV science, you get maybe a sample set of 3, if not 1.
Yeah, because you're building giant things that are hard to replicate to try again and
They're
again.
very hard to replicate.
Someone was asking in the chat room, and I'm probably going to mess. There it is. What is your favorite robotic muscle system to use instead of motors from Tensor Guy? That's the question that's been popping up a lot, and I keep forgetting it.
Robotic muscle system. The that would be pneumatics, and here's why. They're cleaner than hydraulics, because you don't have fluid spraying everywhere. They're cheap, easily accessible, but for two major reasons that I use pneumatics, and they are impossibly fast, and they have a lot of power to weight ratio. So if you want to punch something really fast, I use pneumatics. If you want to move something precisely, I use electrical linear actuators. And if I want to move something reasonably slow that is very, very, very heavy, then I use hydraulics.
Maybe you want to check Twitter on yours while I'm looking for questions here. Somebody asked, what's the best way to encourage girls to work in technology?
What is the best way? I don't get that a lot, but I know that Carrie does. Mm-hmm. And as a female role model, I think she, on our show, is treated as an equal with everyone else. We don't do anything differently with Carrie, and she's perfectly capable. And I think that that is one of the best ways to encourage girls, is to give them these positive, capable role models that, when a young girl sees Carrie on the screen doing science or doing something cool and fun, she says, oh, well, that's cool. I would like to be like that. And I see Carrie doing it. I can do it. It was like, for me, I find it similar to seeing George Takei as Sulu on Star Trek when I was a kid. And I think, that's cool, That's like someone that I identify with, an Asian guy on TV doing something cool, piloting the Enterprise, saving people, going on missions.
Non-tech question. Who's your favorite band?
Favorite band? Let's see.
I'm assuming a musical band, but
musical band.
Jack wasn't specific. He might be asking.
I'm quite a fan of
rubber bands.
Yeah, or frequency modulation. I enjoy, particularly the non. I enjoy the non-visible spectrum. Actually,
let's assume he meant musical acts.
Oh, musical.
Let's
right.
assume that.
Counting Crows. Been a big fan of them for a while. Let me see who else. I've been enjoying Muse recently. So.
A lot of Uprising lately.
Uprising.
That's a Muse song, I think.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay.
If we only had some kind of way to check the internet or something, I don't know. If they only had a device available.
Somebody play.
Favorite beer, Grant. What is your favorite beer?
Favorite beer. Not really a beer guy. I mean, I drink beer. I'm usually a pale ale kind of guy.
There was an episode of Mythbusters about the whole drinking thing.
I do. Yeah, there was.
The Hangover episode, I think it was.
Oh, brutal. I usually do like a Racer 5 or something, but mostly I drink whiskey.
Mostly you drink whiskey?
Whiskey.
That's some hard stuff compared to beer.
It actually, I don't know, I have an easier time for whatever reason, like my body chemistry with the whiskey than I do with the beer.
Beer or wine? I'm assuming wine?
Wine. Red wine. I enjoy a Malbec.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Oh, good. Me too.
Yeah.
Do you have that weird aftertaste with Coke Zero?
Yeah.
I don't. This is just getting really silly.
No, that's that.
It's like, what else can we ask you about? How's it going?
It's going good.
Good.
Have I worked with Alex Lindsay? Yes. At ILM.
He's an interesting guy. He works across the way.
Oh.
I think it's Chicago right now. I think based on that, infrared or ultraviolet is the last question we should take. Infrared or ultraviolet?
Ooh, that's a tough choice. Ultraviolet is sexier, but for my purposes, infrared is more useful.
Just control stuff? You control freak? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. I'm more familiar with the infrared spectrum, so I'm going to go with infrared.
You like what's familiar.
Yeah.
Grant, this was freaking awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and coming to the studio to do this with us. This is going to be like, this is what you do this with guests sometimes, like, where can people find you on the internet? Like, this is going to be very hard. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Grant Imahara and Instagram at Grant Imahara.
Are you actually controlling those, or is, like, do you have like people to do
Oh
that?
yeah. Yeah, if you go to those, you'll see all of my dumb pictures and weird tweets and Jack Daniels. And I respond to people.
A lot of Instagram
yeah,
with Jack Daniels?
If they're clever, you know, say something funny.
So now there's an open challenge, what you just set up. Congratulations for the Twit audience.
Yes.
If you were watching live, we do the show at 3 o'clock on Wednesdays. Leo Laporte normally hosts, and I'm in today. I think next week is another, I think Tom is in. Tom Merritt might be in. Leo's in next week? Oh, pre-recorded. I'm being told from my ear there, it's a Leo Laporte episode. So if you want to watch Triangulation. Porky Pig? He's interviewing Porky Pig. Now, I don't know if my producers are just like completely pulling my leg or what, but I'm telling you guys now, they're saying this. Porky Pig interviewed next week with Leo Laporte. But I think Grant, thank you so much. I had a great time talking to you about this stuff.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, so check it out. If you want to download older episodes, check out twit.tv/TRI for lots of other interviews. Plenty of cool people been interviewed on this program. It's just so much fun. Always great. Thank you so much, Grant.
Yeah.
And we'll see everybody
Thanks,
next
guys.
time on Triangulation.